So the question here is, and this goes back to last week, we were talking about like how much market share could you get? And so we didn't really arrive at a number. We said that, hey, CAC is really how you just keep going until the CAC makes no sense. But who knows what that means. But there is a narrative in the private equity world. And again, this is not about private equity. But it does raise some interesting topics where in home services, there really isn't, and across the trades, we're not just talking green industry or pest. Across the trades, there's not, even in HVAC, where there's been tons and tons of roll-ups, there's still no one company that is just dominant from a market share standpoint. Home services is still really fragmented, meaning there's just tons of smaller companies, tons of competitors. And so you might remember from last week, we used the word thesis. Like private equity has a thesis. Well, a thesis might be, it's fragmented. We could roll them all up. We could buy them up. It's a big opportunity. Okay, that's and there's a lot of truth in that. Like there's just so many companies. We could buy them up and build a really big, great company. Another version of a thesis would be that private equity would have, if anybody listens to Cody Sanchez and so many other people are talking the same line, this has been predicted for a long time. There's a lot of people that are going to age out in the trades. They're getting older. The kids, they're not going to turn the business over to the kids. They're going to want to sell. So another thesis is lots of these companies are coming to the market at some point in the future. And so we'll be able to buy up a lot of these companies because owners are going to want to get out. And so that's something that's happening right now. So it attracts a lot of private equity to our industries, all the trades. And so the question, and I'll kind of frame it as a question for Mike and I, but it's really a question for everyone. It's like, as this happens, as more private equity, more investors, and again, it could be more individual people, guys selling software companies coming into the trades. It doesn't have to be private equity. We always just use private equity to represent the idea that money is coming in. Like now people from all kinds of other businesses could be saying, hey, I want to now own a business in the trades. This could come from anywhere, not just private equity. But as these people and this money comes in, it does create a lot more competition and maybe more sophisticated competition for Augusta, for City Turf. So how do our companies and how do your companies compete with this money and sophistication that's coming in? And maybe two ways to think about this is, one, how do we compete? But another one is, we've very lightly talked on this. Is this good, bad? Does it matter? Is this something to even care about? This is a big framing, but I want to take it one step further. A lot of people know Tommy Mello, know who he is, like him, look up to him. Tommy Mello is private equity. Tommy Mello is exactly what people don't like. And so, I mean, I like Tommy. But he's done. It's still a found. But people will say private equity's bad, but they like Tommy. Right. And the difference is Tommy's still leading his company. I'm not knocking the guy. He's sharp. Okay. All right. So, but you can hold two competing ideas in your head. You can dislike private equity, but you like Tommy. He's private equity. Okay. And so, but the reason I bring him up is he's probably the single best example of somebody that's really moving fast and doing a big thing. And so if you think about his thing, is he hurting the garage door industry? Is he hurting the small garage door companies? Does he matter? Like, is it bad for the industry? And so that's kind of a way to think about it. Because if you picture a Tommy, what if there's a Tommy in your industry? Because most people can't picture somebody, but they can picture him. And you see he's spreading out across states. He's buying up companies. He's going fast. They're really good at selling. Like, they're aggressive. They have a huge marketing budget. They know their data. They do technology. They do all the stuff. So when I frame this question, Tommy's coming to compete with you in whatever trade you're in. Are you worried about that? And how do we think about this? So that's kind of the big setup here. How do you think about that?
Yeah, so a couple things came to mind. I was looking at the question slightly different, but I think it works really good. And that is my biggest qualm with private equity in general. Again, I'm talking in generalities, is their time horizon. And many times, because the fund needs to sell or get ready for the next time they sell the business or turn it or raise another fund, that's usually 5 years, maybe 7. And I feel like a lot of times it leads to the perverse incentives of cutting support, going very aggressive on marketing, etc., and then someone's left holding the bag. And I think your point about Tommy and like, would you want that in your hometown or in your industry is a really good way to frame it. And I think the part that I would say for that specific example is like, I think Tommy has done a good job of showing what is needed to make a great technician when it comes to training them and the amount that they invest into their training. Now, someone could argue that they have all the money so they can invest 6 weeks of training into a new garage door technician. But my question is, for the person that's next door and thinking that's a bad thing, is how much are you training your new technicians? Are you training them on how to do the work, how to talk to the customer, what to say, what not to say? They spend 6 weeks and fly them from around the country to go to the headquarter building for 6 weeks. And so when I look at, is it good for the industry? If that forces the local competition to say, I'm going to spend a little more time training my technicians so they talk to the customer better, they know how to do the work better, they don't do shoddy work, I think that's good for the industry. I don't know like specifically that case, like garage doors example, is I don't know if he's putting pressure downwards on pricing or if he's pushing people out of the market.
I doubt he's putting pressure on pricing, but I don't know. Yeah.
And so that part I don't know, but I think when I think about professionalism, what do I expect from my garage door tech? If someone like that moves into town, I do think as a broad stroke, the overall industry's perception when I'm training the technicians, I show up in a wrap truck, I'm insured, I make sure I do a good quality job, I ask for a review, I can talk to the customer. I think that's good for the industry, and that's where my mind generally goes. I think how to beat that person is usually having a longer term horizon. And I'm not talking about Tommy specifically because he's still involved. But if a private equity company comes in directly, they put a different CEO and they take out the founder. The way I compete with them is I think in terms of 20 to 40 years. I'm not thinking about 2 to 3 years, cutting every single thing possible. Like you mentioned last week, the last 2 points on the P&L of killing the culture, sharpening the pencil so much. I think that we lean into our unique selling proposition that PE can't do. Like PE can have lower prices, they can compete with us and lose a bunch of money. They can have a huge marketing budget, so they win the mind share of our audience because they're in front of them all the time. But like if your unique selling proposition is you have personal service, you've been in that area for 20, 30 years and have good connections with a lot of the locals, your social media is local. It's not this branded national thing. It's the biggest thing we struggle with at Augusta is like we have to create marketing for 200 locations. If you're in the local market and you're like, that's a threat, and like, you can create social media that has Main Street and shows your city hall. I can't do that. And so I think to answer the original question, like how do you compete with them? It's you lean into your unique selling proposition and have a longer term horizon in terms of when you want benefit to be returning back from you. And it's not 3 or 4 or 5 years or this quarter. It is a much longer term horizon.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I don't really worry too terribly much for the smaller companies. And the reason I don't worry for the smaller companies is that, especially the guy in a truck, a guy with a couple crews, it's very much about, it's what you said, it's about local. The stuff I bet on back in the early days of City Turf, quality and high customer service, I think that continues to win. I think it's one of your most defensive plays. The localization, as you said, everything, a brand, as I like to think about it, is basically just doing what you say you're going to do. So figuring out what is our brand promise? What is it as a company? And it doesn't even have to be worded that complicated. It's like, what do we promise as a company? What are the things that we promise we'll give you as our client, as trusting us and trying us and going with us, and then actually doing it? And so many companies break that trust or are inconsistent in that trust. And that's what hurts their reputation over a longer period of time. To your point, if you have a long time horizon, then you are very focused on never breaking that trust, never breaking that brand promise, because that's all you got. And if you build that and you hire to that and you fire to that and you do all that, it sort of in my mind takes care of itself to a degree. And but as you get to become a bigger company, this is where the PE coming in, especially a PE company still ran by the founder who's able to kind of keep the original culture and feel of the company. The increased marketing spend is a real problem, is my opinion. I think that is a real legitimate challenge. And so it's something I do think about.
Yeah, if you've built a $1 million home service business, but you're struggling to get to the next level at $10 million in annual revenue, I've created a private community just for you. It's called Home Service Boardroom. What got you to $1 million is all the work, the hustle, the grind, figuring out your leads, your website. But what gets you from $1 million to $10 million is learning the skill of leadership, finding other great talent and managers to work for you. If that's of interest, go check out mikeandy.com/school or see the link in the description.